What's up, everyone? My name is Mistic. Welcome to Mystic Rex. Today, we're watching another video by BlueJay, How to Survive Victorian London. Now, I haven't even been to modern London or any other modern countries in modern days, so I don't think I could survive Victorian. But let's get into it. Check out his video down below, like and subscribe, all that good stuff.
Do you ever watch Downton Abbey and find yourself thinking,
What?
I should have been born in the Victorian era?
I've
Well,
never
you're
heard of
stupid.
that show.
Firstly, because Downton Abbey takes place 11 years after the Victorian era, silly
Okay.
goose. And secondly, because life in Victorian London would be
Is
absolutely
11 years
terrifying for
after
someone accustomed to
that
the
different?
luxuries of the 21st century. But let's say you somehow end up in a Freaky Friday situation and switch bodies with a bona fide Victorian. How are you going to survive the London
Is
streets?
that what happened
Not
in
to worry.
Freaky Friday?
With my extensive background
I
studying
didn't watch
history,
that.
certified by my 90,000 Reddit karma, I'm here to teach you everything
I'm
you need to know to
jealous.
survive the Victorian era.
Okay. Hi there. I'm BlueJay. I almost named my channel Resro. I can't choose the better.
Alright, so you just finished your
info.
Disney Channel style body swap and have officially transported over a century back in time to Victorian London.
Yeah.
What? What is it, James? My body? What's happening? It looks like during the body swap you've received a lethal dose of gamma radiation.
Ooh.
Oh, and your hairline is receding. My hair? Oh yeah,
My
actually 2
hair.
out of every 3 guys will experience some form of hair loss by the time they're 35. But about that radiation, BlueJay, how do I keep it? Alright, weird priorities. Well, really the best way to
Wear a
combat
wig.
hair loss would be with Keeps. It's a fantastic doctor-recommended online service that
Oh.
offers clinically proven treatment to stop hair loss and improve hair growth. They're customer-focused with a 24/7 care and support network of expert medical radiation. Well, at least they'll go out with luscious curls. Hair loss stops with Keeps. To get 50% off your first order, go to keeps.com/bluejay or click that link in the description. That's keeps.com/bluejay.
like the
Thank you, Keeps,
hair.
for sponsoring the video. Of course, Alex, you're gonna have to wait a few centuries until you've got internet again, as you're now in Victorian London. The city is booming from the results of the Industrial
Is this,
Revolution. The air is dense, but the
during
stunning
the,
Gothic Revival architecture still manages to pierce
what is
through all the
his name?
smog. It's a city of rapid expansion and expensive
That,
projects, starkly contrasted by the overflowing slums.
Circular.
But man, taking in all these new sights is really starting to make you thirsty. So you head on over to a well pump for a fresh sip of water. First mistake! What are you, crazy? You won't even survive a day here! You can't drink the water! Cholera outbreaks are about as common as an office quote in a Tinder bio. The booming population of London, combined with newly introduced indoor plumbing, resulted in overwhelming
So
amounts
do I
of raw
drink
sewage.
alcohol?
This sewage ended up in the Thames
Ooh.
River, which happens to be London's main source of drinking water, thus completing the circle of life. During one cholera outbreak, Jon Snow, a supporter of germ theory, looked at all this sewage in their drinking water and had the hot take of, hey, what if we drink water, but without the poop? And ended the outbreak by ripping off the handle of a contaminated well pump. At the time, the community believed in the miasma theory, basically the idea that diseases were transmitted through foul odors. So government officials still rejected Snow's theory of fecal oral transmission, stating, "Germs in the water? Don't be ridiculous. It was stinky air." And this wouldn't be the last time a Jon Snow's potential was shattered. So unless you
Okay.
want to die a painful
I
death,
don't-
I
I
suggest
don't get
boiling
that
your water,
reference.
or just stick to hard liquor, where the
Yeah.
alcohol will not only kill any germs, but also help drown that regret you're starting to feel for wishing to be in
Yeah.
Victorian London, instead of shutting up and playing Wordle like a good little consumer. Alright, now that you're properly shit-faced,
Never
you're
played
going to
Wordle.
pinpoint your social class so you know who you're allowed to interact with. But isn't
Okay.
who I am inside more important than some social class?
No.
No! Simply talking to a social class higher than yours is enough to get you arrested here. Luckily,
Yay.
it's rather easy to find out which one you belong to. For example, are you over the age of 25 and
No.
alive? Then you're probably not in the lower class, as male tradesmen and laborers had life expectancies of 25 and 22 respectively. But let's say you find yourself a member of the
Maybe that's
respectable
me.
upper class. What can you expect from your newly found privileged life?
Uh-huh.
Well, first off, you can kiss the thought of a hard day's work goodbye, because with the fortune your family has built over generations through certainly non-exploitive means, you'll never
Yeah.
have to work a day in your life.
Ooh.
So instead, you're gonna have to find out how to kill all this free time you got on your hands. Being a person with enough wealth to buy a handful of developing nations, or 1 GPU, you decide to use your money to
Damn.
give back to the poor people whose blood, sweat, and faucet
Yeah,
jaws helped you
right.
build your riches. So you buy tickets to next Tuesday's Freak Show. Freak shows were essentially the MCU of the Victorian era, loved by
Ooh.
people of all ages and social classes, except for pretentious people who prefer more refined entertainment, like
What?
seances. Everyone from your average Joe to Queen Victoria herself loved to goggle and laugh at all the different looking people performing. These freak shows showcase people with physical abnormalities, such as dwarfs, conjoined twins, giants, fat people, thin people, hairy people, ethnic people, and whatever else they thought would pique people's curiosity. Gather round, folks, gather round! around, for I'm about to unveil the wonders of the world. Realities beyond your comprehension.
ginger.
Freaks from distant and foreign lands. Meet the man of hair. The precious Piper Pinky. And behold, Paul! I thought this was a freak show. Oh, trust me, Paul's a freak. However, the reign of freak shows came to an end as reports of mistreatment of the performers came to light.
Who'd
The
have
public was
thought?
furious to find out that the people they went to laugh at for being less than human were being treated as less than human. But now that
Yeah.
you've reached your limit of being near the working class who aren't actively carrying your dry martini on a silver platter, it's time for you to build your social status with your fellow aristocrats. To do this, you're gonna have to capitalize on some of the trends of the time. No, not child labor. We'll get to that later. I'm talking Egyptomania. Napoleon's campaigns in Egypt brought back trade and artifacts to Europe, eventually igniting a craze for all things Egyptian in the West due to its perceived exotic nature. This craze peaked during the Victorian era, and Victorians sure had interesting ways of indulging in this trend, such as hosting mummy parties. Not the Brendan Fraser kind, they weren't that based.
Is it where they
Specifically,
eat
they held
it?
mummy unwrapping parties. Getting your hands on a mummy was the easy part. You could literally cop one from street vendors in Egypt like a pin from Disney World, but unwrapping them required a trained professional called an unroller. Why exactly they had to hire a professional to do some glorified banana peeling is beyond me, but I can only assume that their training involved a significant amount of fruit by the foot. Essentially, a bunch of people would gather around to watch the unroller unwrap the mummy and perform an autopsy,
Didn't
including
they
cutting
eat
into the
that?
skull to go, oh my god, look, he's got a brain, that's crazy. Fragments of the pungent mummy wrappings were then passed throughout the audience for their pleasure, I guess. What am I supposed to do with this? While today we recognize hosting an unboxing party for corpses and disgracing a people's history is the most optimal way to speedrun a Twitter hashtag, the Victorians just couldn't help but satisfy their intrigue. And in their defense, they basically came gift-wrapped. But if you need any more convincing on how evil this practice was, the most famous unwrapper was a surgeon named Pettigrew. But overall, in the upper class, you won't need to worry all that much about staying alive. Except for the arsenic in your walls, lead on your dolls, corsets in your torsos, cyanide in your photos, strychnine in your tablets, explosive bits of plastic, kitchens full of toxins, morphine for your youngins, mercury-coated hats, radiation from your glass, kerosene in hair products, and
Lovely.
asbestos in just about everything.
Woo.
Good luck.
I have
But
green
what if you
walls.
aren't lucky enough to live the life of a Victorian Scrooge McDuck, and instead you find yourself living la vida pobre in the working class? Hold off on the booze there, buddy. As tempting of a coping mechanism alcohol is, we gotta make sure you even survive childhood first. Let's put you in a humble family of 7 kids and shit, 4 of your siblings just died. What?
More
Oh yeah,
food for
nearly
me.
60% of working class children died before the age of 5. Good for you, champ, you won the coin toss.
Yeah.
I need to lie
More
down.
food.
So long as it's in a minor chimney, because it's time for you to get to work. I'm 5 years old. And about time you started contributing to the family, you lazy leech. Without child labor laws, working class kids started working as early as 4 years old. Now pick your poison, chimney sweeping or coal mining. Well, I suppose it's just a 9 to 5. 9 to 5? No. Victorian children were expected to work 12 to 18 hours a day. Gotta beat out that optimism early.
Yeah.
Besides, you've only got that small stature for so many years. Companies have to capitalize on your ability to squeeze in the tight spaces while you can. Now, these are still your formative years, so we gotta make sure you choose the child profession that'll cause the least amount of physical and emotional trauma. There were a lot, but let's narrow it down to chimney sweep and coal miner, and weigh some pros and cons. As a
chimney.
coal miner, you can expect some permanent eye damage due to eye strain from the dark environment, respiratory problems from coal dust, permanent spine deformation due to stooping, and of course there was the occasional explosion or cave-in. But on the bright side, you're essentially playing the closest Victorian equivalent to Minecraft. As for chimney sweeps, say goodbye to the skin on your elbows and knees as that's all getting scraped off.
Oh, mine's very
You'll
messed up.
experience some irreversible lung damage from all the soot,
I break
and
out
there's a
that
high risk
issue.
of death from falling or getting stuck in the tight chimneys. But at least you can die happy knowing that when Mary Poppins comes out in 100 years, Dick Van Dyke will forever cement your profession as much cooler than it actually was.
Yeah.
So assuming you survive your childhood profession, it's time for the big boy world. Now, I know the idea of living poor in a Victorian city is probably a terrifying concept, but don't worry. The Victorians actually put in some effort to help the poverty-stricken wastes of oxygen excuse me, less fortunate folk. For example, if you're homeless, you can escape the cold at a penny sit-up, where for the small price of 1 penny, you get to sit on a bench in a shelter for the night. Whoa, now, don't get too crazy. You're not allowed to sleep here. What do you think you are, a human? You only paid for the privilege of sitting, and penny sit-ups even had monitors to ensure you didn't fall asleep. If you're looking to catch some Z's, you're gonna have to cough up an extra penny at a 2-penny hangover. Don't get too excited. Contrary to the name suggests, a 2-penny hangover is not a charity dive bar where you can drink yourself into an ethanol-induced coma. Instead, it was a rope that you literally hung over. Not the most comfortable experience, but at least you'll be the coolest kid on campus with your minimalist hammocking setup. The rope was ideal because it allowed the staff to quickly, dispense with all the poor people in the morning. But hey, maybe it was a good day at the factory and you walked out with 4 pennies in your pocket, you little aristocrat you. Well, you can afford to be a high roller and head on over to a 4-penny coffin.
Ooh.
Yep. While it may look like you just got shipped back from the Crimean War, a 4-penny coffin was quite the step up from a rope, to be fair. You got to spend the night in a nice coffin, you had a tarp to keep warm, and you even got assigned your own little serial number, which is undoubtedly the closest you'll ever get to being acknowledged in your life.
Yeah.
Speaking of life, you better get used to this one, as people didn't exactly graduate from social classes, so the only 4 walls you'll likely ever get to call home will be a coffin at best, or a coffin at worst. If you can afford it. But on the bright side, if you manage to survive through the era, you'll get to experience many of the following significant discoveries and advancements. America found its second manifest destiny with the discovery of crude oil in 1859. Charles Darwin published his book on the concept of evolution, meaning that in a few centuries we may evolve past thinking crocs are cool. Darwin's half-cousin, Francis Galton, took this research and started modern eugenics, which led to problems. Alexander Graham Bell patents the telephone in 1876, a device that changed the world by allowing people to learn about their car's extended warranty. Germ theory would become accepted by the end of the Victorian era, and nobody would doubt doctors ever again. The 19th century saw many innovations in data visualization for statistics, which are used today for optimizing shiny Pokemon encounter strategies. The Bessemer process gave us bigger buildings for more people. Modern artillery gave us smaller buildings for less people. Radiation was discovered in 1896, leading the cancer treatment in Imagine Dragons. The Navier-Stokes equations were developed to describe the motion of viscous fluids and weed out chemical engineering students. And Carl Benz builds the world's first car while simultaneously killing the concept of peaceful suburban life. And those are just a few of the significant advancements made during the iconic Victorian era. So, Alex, are you excited for your new Victorian life?
No.
You want to go home and play Elden Ring?
No.
Good boy. The Victorian era. Disgusting and deadly, but inspired Bloodborne. 3 out of 10 stars.
Never played. Hope you enjoyed. Check out the video down below. Would you survive London now or Victorian? I don't think I would like it either. But let me know down below what I should watch next. And until next time, bye.